What would you say is the sort of formula to becoming successful on social media?
It's really understanding your
100%.
teaming up with actually my older brother who played football at Penn State and UMass, made the pitch to me and said, hey, we need you to be the CEO of this company. I mean, if you're 10 years old, just go out and have fun and stop spending every single weekend when you're 11 at a AAU tournament.
I think that's a real issue. What's the biggest lesson you learned playing high-level college sports?
The biggest thing was just learning how to fail.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into our first ever episode of The Ticketry Show. Now, coming up is a conversation that myself and our CEO, Eli Wilson, had with Grant Breneman. Grant Breneman is the founder of Arvelo Media. He's also a former Division I college quarterback at Colgate University, all-around great guy, and just so happens to be an advisor to us here at Ticketry. Grant gets into it a lot in the podcast, but Arvelo Media is a social media service designed specifically for college athletes to enhance their brand awareness, enhance their presence on social media. Grant runs Arvelo Media with his brother, Adam Breneman, who's one of the faces of college football media. I'll leave it at that, and I hope you all enjoy our conversation with Grant Breneman. We're here with the founder of Arvelo Media, former Division I college quarterback, and just all around great dude, Grant Breneman. Thanks for joining us.
Matt, thanks for having me, man. Excited to be on.
Love it. All right, let's just get into it. I want to hear more about your journey. Take us through high school, college, and then obviously where you went before Arvelo Media. What led you to start Arvelo Media?
Yeah, for sure, man. There's a lot of different probably avenues that we can go down for this. But the background on me is, so grew up in a smaller town in Pennsylvania, played every single sport growing up, narrowed it down to football and baseball in high school. So didn't quite specialize like these kids are starting to do nowadays at like 8 years old. Got a scholarship offer to play quarterback at Colgate University. So smaller D1 school in the Patriot League, and ended up going there and loved it, man. Got to play a ton of football. It was a hard school, good academic experience. We actually did have to go to class for us, but yeah, man, had a super positive college football experience there. Ended up moving to New York City after school, kind of pursue the normal finance route here. Did that for a handful of years before teaming up with actually my older brother who played football at Penn State and UMass, and over the past 4 or 5 years has really built out his own personal brand and has become a big personality in the sports media space through social media content, whether it's short form content, podcasts, and everything in between. And we saw an opportunity to package up everything that we've learned from building his own personal brand through social and offer it as a service to different businesses, brands, athletes, and sports. So that's when we started the business, kind of on the side, borrowing a couple clients, and I was still working my full-time job, and he made the pitch to me and said, hey, we need you to be the CEO of this company. And next thing you know, I quit my finance job and hopped onto Arvelo Media and started growing it. So it's been a lot of fun. We're about a year into it, growing our full-time team, working with a lot of great clients. We work with a lot of businesses and brands that are kind of in the early stage growth stage space in the sports industry. So sports tech companies, sports media companies. And then we get to work with some athletes and creators as well on their own personal content. So it's been a good balance of opportunities to work on. And honestly, we're just always working on cool things, which is awesome. And the entrepreneurial experience has been hard, but it's been a blast so far too.
Incredible. That's awesome. The shifting gears back to something you mentioned that kind of just got my attention, specialization amongst youth athletes. How much of a problem do you think that's become in 2025?
Yeah, honestly, I've been out of the whole AAU travel ball sphere for a bit, but I know just anecdotally it can definitely be a problem. I would think with the main sport, especially the main U.S. sports, I think people definitely probably specialize a bit too early. Like for a sport like football, you want to play as many sports as possible because you want to be athletic. Like go and run track, go and play basketball. And just be an athlete. There's obviously things like golf is probably hard to just pick up late, and you probably have to specialize in that. So it's not like I'm fully against that, but for the most part, you just want to be able to be a good athlete, run, jump, catch a ball, have good coordination. The best way to do that is to play a bunch of sports. And yeah, like if you get to your sophomore year, junior year in high school, you're really good at one thing, go for it. Like and go all in on that. Nothing against that. But I mean, if you're 10 years old, just go out and have fun and stop spending every single weekend when you're 11 at a AAU tournament.
100%. Yeah, I think that's a real issue, especially just things going like beyond sports, just maybe even socially, like for young kids especially.
Yeah.
What's the biggest lesson you learned playing high level college sports?
The biggest thing was just learning how to fail. You had to get really comfortable with failing, and like it was a real wake up call, especially growing up and you're kind of like the captain on the team, the best guy, normally like one of the best guys on the team if you end up playing at the college level. And most guys go into the other freshman year and it's going to be difficult. But I think it's, especially football and the quarterback position in particular, you have to be used to making mistakes and owning those mistakes. And I think that was like the biggest thing for me, where like you throw an interception and you're going to watch it 5 times in film the next day and go through it, and you're going to be accountable for that. And you have to get really used to dealing with those mistakes. But it just makes you so much better. And honestly, it's helped me after sports too, not be as afraid of failing, be like, and there's different levels of that, obviously too. But I think that's been the main thing, just like developing more tough skin, and honestly just like bouncing back from that stuff just makes you believe in yourself even more. So like I kind of always say, like from a student athlete perspective, you learn the typical stuff like time management and working as a team, but when you get to those higher levels, it's all about how do you manage failure, because there's guys out there that are going to be better than you, more athletic, faster than you. You're going to make mistakes, and just how do you deal with that?
How do those sort of lessons you learned and those skills that you acquired translate to life after college and after sports?
Yeah, I think it goes back to just like being comfortable knowing that you don't know everything and just like go after it, and like you're gonna figure it out. I am, even just a personality wise, like I'm a little bit like risk averse per se, like, but that's why I found like my business partner, who's my brother in Arvella Media, is kind of like that visionary, like risk taker. So like finding that other person that complements you, it's just like the same thing on the field. Finding you can have that like big, tall wide receiver, but then you can also have that like little slot guy, and like that they complement each other really well. So I think it's kind of realizing my own weaknesses and figuring out, okay, how do I team up with somebody who can push me in the areas that need to be pushed?
How has NIL completely changed the college sports space?
Yeah, I think it's number one, just a net positive. I think the most interesting thing, I think NIL and just college players getting paid was inevitable. But the biggest thing I'm interested in is really there's 2 things. It's number one, like capital actually being allocated to universities to help them develop and become a more professionalized business. Like for the most part, they're run by academics, people that have education degrees, which is fine for the time being because that's what they were. But like, how do you start? They need to find a lot of revenue opportunities, and so that's where you've seen Elevate, which is a private capital fund, like be raised like $500 million. They're going to invest in programs like develop real estate, develop stadiums, look for different ways to maximize media rights. So I think that's really interesting. And the other side of things is like the picks and shovels aspect of it, which I think like Arvella Media kind of falls into that as well. You kind of have this gold rush in the NIL and college sports space, but there's a ton of infrastructure that's needed to support that. Obviously, like Arvella, like we're more on the content side, but we work with a lot of businesses that are in that picks and shovels kind of niche as well, where they're creating tech platforms for NIL athletes to manage their money, or they're a sports media company that's trying to help build their brands. And I think that's a good question for you too, because I think just from what you guys are doing at Ticketry, that you've seen a lot of different opportunities. It's, honestly, from the conversations that we've had, it seems like it's evolving and changing. So curious too about just like what from your own business perspective, like how you see the opportunity in NIL and college sports.
It is such an unbelievable opportunity because there's so many entry points, right? And so many different people that are involved with it. Something that we found pretty recently is that maybe the place that we fit in best right now is actually using our NIL capabilities and our benefits that we could bring to actually benefit schools that are maybe down here and not the ones that are up here. Because if you're talking about a school that's maybe a little less known, less facilities versus a school that's in their conference that has won their conference the past 3 years, but they just use a standard ticketing provider that doesn't bring them anything. But all of a sudden, this school is going to use Ticketry, which opens up all these different NIL vehicles for their athletes. If you're a recruit choosing between the two, you're going to choose the little guy. And then even from the guy that's using Ticketry, and then even also from a financial standpoint, like those smaller schools really, really value any sort of leg up you can give them financially, any sort of leg up you can give them with NIL. And we come in and do that. And so that's kind of where we've seen a huge kind of shift in that's where those conversations are like, wow, we need this. You know what I mean? I don't know, Eli, if you
Yeah. I would just add in that obviously, I know, Grant, you can probably build on this more if you'd like, but a lot of NIL deals now are just maybe not as focused on the athlete's capability on the field, but more their off the field kind of brand presence on social media. And with our kind of ticket to collectible transformation process, if 1,000 fans every single game are posting a quarterback's highlight, legendary collectible on their Instagram story, for example, then that student athlete's social media presence will grow, and then they'll actually be able to kind of have more inflow, I guess, for different NIL deals if their social media followings are growing and their mind share on those platforms are growing. So obviously, like Matt mentioned, like we do have the kind of back end blockchain enabled tools that allows fans to split revenue pay or allows hosts to kind of say, okay, we're going to give 5% of each ticket sale back to our NIL fund, or so there's a financial option. You can also just look at it in the social media and growth kind of perspective.
Yeah, and I just gotta say, like, anything that helps any university drive revenue right now is going to be at the top of their minds. You have everything from the biggest universities that are going to hit the cap of rev share and need actual NIL opportunities outside of that. So it's like those are like the above the cap opportunities is kind of a term that people are talking about. Then you have a school like my alma mater, Colgate, who they've opted out of revenue share. They're not going to be able to support and actually pay their athletes. They're like, the program is not, big enough to do that. But there's going to be some opportunities for some true NIL. Yeah, it's probably not $1 million, but you have people that do have valuable personal brands that are recognizable in the small community or recognizable and build their brand on social media. That if you can, and they're all competing against each other, so it's all like a relative scale. So if you can help those schools gain a competitive advantage, then that's just as valuable too.
And that's something we've kind of started to see even more of, transitioning into the media space, watching your brother and then joining forces and starting Arbella Media this past year. What would you say is the sort of formula to becoming successful on social media?
It's really understanding the audience and who you're actually speaking to. There's a lot of different niches and strategies that you can go down into, but that's kind of the end thing there. It's like, what are some of their pain points? What are they experiencing? Because that's just the social media right now is so good at pushing content to people that want to see it, that you really, like, the way to do it is to reverse engineer it and to think about, like, okay, I want to reach this group of people, and what does that group of people care about? I'm going to make content that is valuable to what they care about. And that's really the formula. It comes in so many different shapes and sizes. I mean, it comes even like, you can even break that down with like the Kelsey brothers podcast of like, yes, like if they launched a podcast, obviously it was going to be successful, but there was something like that was missing just from these high level athletes, as far as hearing their stories, hearing a guy like Travis or Jason after like a brutal loss, them playing in the Super Bowl. It's like, people want to hear that stuff as sports fans. So you can even reverse engineer that. It's like, okay, we know that like those sports fans would have eaten that up, so it makes a ton of sense to make content like that.
100%. What's the biggest lesson you'd say that you've learned running Arbella?
I think just from an entrepreneurial standpoint, like, it's going to be difficult, but it's always, number one, it's always harder than you expect. The other thing is, like, you just have to make decisions without 100% certainty too, like early on. which is something that I've just had to get comfortable with. And it goes back with like being okay with making mistakes and saying, hey, like our advantage as an earlier in like leaner company is going to be that we can move faster and we can correct our mistakes faster than anyone else. And that's what it comes down to. So yeah, I think it's been a lot of fun being going from the finance world to really operating a company. Like I really enjoy getting into the weeds of like how do you actually operate and scale and grow a company. So like that's just stuff that I've been able to kind of like nerd out on as well. But honestly, it's a different lesson every day. I'm sure the answer 12 months from now is going to be different than the one I say right now too.
Yeah, 100%. That's something we feel for similar reasons is, every day there's kind of a new challenge, but that's what makes this so fun to do is the ability to problem solve. What's sort of a day-to-day like running Arvelo Media in terms of like what you guys actually do, and then like what does your day actually look like?
Yeah, so like our core offering is real. We kind of say like, hey, we want to be the content engine behind the clients that we work with. So we want to work with them on, hey, what content are we going to create? Actually shooting that content and then doing all the production and doing the right things on the back end so that we get the maximum amount of reach on that content as well. So that's where kind of the content engine things come from. Whether that's with a business that is, they just raised a Series A and they're really trying to go after and acquire new customers, to this athlete who has an awesome story and we're trying to get that out and launch a podcast with them and do a short form content series. So like, again, a lot of the same pillars and the same strategies are in place, but it's fun to get to work on the kind of two ends of the spectrum there. And then also now starting to find some opportunities to like, oh, we have a creator that we're working with that could really complement a business that we're working with. Like, can they be an ambassador? Can they do content together? So that's a lot of fun. And then just from a tactical standpoint, like as an entrepreneur, kind of doing everything right now, everything from operations where we're in the weeds of like, I don't like that camera angle, let's change this, or like, let's change the hook on this short form piece of content, to then, working on hiring, building out a team, what are the processes in the background, paying taxes, like going through all that stuff, being the CFO, the COO, and everything in between. So, again, you get a little bit of taste of everything. Sometimes it can feel like you're drinking from a fire hose, but that's kind of what you sign up for. And I'm sure you guys feel that way. I mean, I think the one thing that's always difficult is, especially in an earlier stage business, is there's a ton of opportunities out there, and figuring out like what to actually say no to has been difficult too, where like you're trying to take on all the different opportunities, network as much as possible, build this business. And I'm sure like I'd be curious too, if there's anything that like you guys have had to say no to yet, as far as like, hey, really understanding, and everyone, it takes a while to really understand your core focus as a business, but like any opportunities that you've been like, no, we have to say no to, at least for now, to focus on what we think we're really good at.
Yeah, there's a couple. The first one, Eli, feel free to chime in. The first one that comes to my mind is we had a really good connection with Combat Sports League that was overseas in another country, and that we really liked what they were doing. They really liked what we were doing, and that would have been, not the craziest, but it would have been, a nice revenue bump as well. And the more we dug into it, that process, because they're overseas, would have been quite the process for us to go through to try to land that. And kind of at the same time we're having those conversations, we're having other conversations with other people. So that was one we had to be like, okay, we're going to come back to this. This is great. We just can't make it happen right now. And again, if we had a team of, more people, if we were at a different stage in our path, probably could have devoted some time to that. But yeah, there is just that sort of balance of like, if we try to do a million things, those million things aren't going to get done well.
Yeah, it's tough. Especially in the earlier stages where you're looking for every opportunity to drive revenue. You're trying to get your name out there, show people that you can do what you say you're doing. But sometimes it just, and that's the decision as a leader you have to make, is saying no, it's actually not. Juice isn't worth the squeeze at some point.
Yeah, I had a couple of things that come to mind. I mean, I remember when we were first building this out, one of our very early Web3 community pilot partners wanted us to add a merch checkout. So a fan buys a ticket and then they also can select merch. to checkout as well, and then just pick it up when they get there. That's cool in theory, but I mean, and we have the technological kind of capabilities to do so. But I mean, at the kind of core mission of what we're building here, it's just a better experience for fans. And I think the cleanest experience in terms of ticketing and just being a ticketing platform is like, hey, let's just at the very first and foremost get you into the venue and have that experience itself be extremely kind of smooth and clean and simple, and not overcomplicated, or not trying to flag you down for extra dollars here and there. So we did have to say no to that, which was, I mean, it wasn't the hardest thing to do, because I mean, we just had to do it for the attendees for that event.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's some like just that process that you mentioned of like, there's, we want to do at Ticketry, we do a lot of different things, but something that we've learned like with our partners is like the experience, the actual experience of like when people get to the event, like just needs to be the best thing we do. You know what I mean? And that's something that took time to learn. Luckily, like all of our, we kind of started off at like a good place, which is good. And we've been able to just grow that and grow that and grow that. But that's something that like, again, kind of this core thing that like you just need to get that right. And you need to make sure before you do anything else, like the experience for your consumer needs to be good. And then everything else can kind of come from there.
Yeah. And I'm sure that's always a struggle. Like we deal with it where, hey, like as you guys really start to understand the consumer experience and curate exactly how it's supposed to look, you're going to have partners that somebody has an idea. It's their marketing person or it's their operations person that's like, they want some sort of checkout, like you said. And it's hard because, again, you're trying to please the people that are paying your bills. But you kind of have to put your foot down. And I think that confidence grows over time, like as you gain that expertise, which you guys have. And the same thing happens on the content side of things. You have somebody who wants to go a different angle with something, and sometimes you have to say like, no, we know this is what's going to work. And there's always a little bit of a struggle there, but at the end of the day, it's like I'd rather err on the side that on the stuff that I really believe in than than try to please everyone.
Yeah, 100%. It's also just knowing, like really having that belief that what you are doing is a true better solution than what's currently out there. Like there are so many times when organizations or venues or teams will say, hey, we want to use your collectible piece or your fan engagement tools. Can you make like an API integration into our existing ticketing provider? We're like, well, we could, like that's super easy to do and we could do it. But if fans are already hating their checkout experience and their ticket experience on your platform, I don't think like adding 3 steps at the end, even if those steps are really, really cool, is the best way to solve that at its core, right? But yeah, it's all about kind of sticking on what you have, and it seems like you're pretty much crushing that at Arvelo so far, man.
Yeah, man, it's been a lot of fun. Again, like not just building my own company, but then because of the client facing nature of like what we do, it's been a lot of fun to feel like you're a part of building these other businesses and brands and athletes too. So you kind of get the feeling of the 2 ways of feeling that satisfaction when you're in this kind of building mode.
How much does NIL play into like what you do in your relationships with student athletes?
Yeah, I mean, I think it plays a big role. One of the things that we've really started to do recently is like, we haven't done a ton of direct relationships with college athletes. As far as, hey, they are a direct client of Arvelo Media. The reason being is it's a 16, 17, 18-year-old kid, and like normally they're focused on, getting a starting position at some point. And one of the main things that we've been doing actually is striking up some more partnerships with NIL agencies. And that's been really successful so far as a way to, hey, be the content engine for all of the athletes that they're working with instead of just one. It's been something that we've been able to scale more effectively, and something when you're working with like NIL agencies, again, they're more focused on going out and finding the marketing deals, the sponsorships, but a lot of these guys, these players lack the content side of things. So it's been a way that we've been able to plug in again and do something that's a little bit more at scale. Like dealing with professional athletes is a little bit different because they normally have the team around them. They understand the value of building their brand. But to go to a 19-year-old kid and say, we need to do 30 pieces of content this month probably isn't realistic. So like we've stayed, we've kind of worked with athletes more at scale than just each individual one in the NIL space. But again, it's still a big driver behind what we're doing. It's a big driver behind a lot of the businesses that we're working with, because they're the ones servicing the NIL space in different aspects too. So we have our hands in a lot of different things in that college sports and NIL space, and getting more involved with the player side has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, 100%. That's interesting that you found that that's the more effective path, because we found a really kind of similar situation. Whereas like when we deal with like, say like the league or like the venue instead of one individual thing, obviously that changes the game and it's much easier to scale. It's almost like less overwhelming for everyone if you're kind of dealing at this sort of top down level. So that makes a bunch of sense. I mean, we've been doing the kind of same exact sort of strategy, I guess, or just something that we found. If you were to do everything all over again, what's one thing you would change? And then what's one thing you would double down on?
Great question. I think the one thing I would change is, honestly, it's more of just an attitude thing, where it's very easy to get exhausted in the early stages of like things that could go wrong. Especially like as you're getting things off the ground, as you're like you're trying to give your company like a heartbeat, and like coming out of that and starting to feel like, hey, we're really starting to hit our stride and trying to scale the business. You realize all of that effort and all of like the staying up, like worrying about these certain things about like, oh, is this client mad at us for this, or like, are we doing the right things? It's normally better just to make the decision and move on and figure it out as you go, than it is worrying about things that could go wrong. Because the reality is, when you're starting a company, like everything could go wrong. So that's the one thing that I'd say I'd want to do differently. I think one thing that I want to double down on in the future, honestly, is just putting out more content from personally. Like I've done a lot of stuff on LinkedIn. It's funny, like I kind of say like I need to hire Arbella Media for Arbella Media. With a client-focused business, like it is hard to just put out enough content. Obviously, it helps that Adam is like the content creator and it's kind of that personal brand that can really head up the company. But something that like I enjoy, I want to do, and as we build the business, try to take my head out of the sand of operations and be like, hey, I actually think I have a good story to share too, and a lot of insights that me 2 years ago would want to hear from myself at this point too. So have been trying to get more into that as well.
100%. That's something that we definitely talk about too on the regular. That's all the time we have. That was an awesome discussion. Eli, I don't know if you want to hop in with anything.
No, all good, Grant. I know you're a busy dude, so we appreciate you taking the time to do this.
Got one question for you guys to throw it back at you. Again, you're young guys building a great business that's already crushing it. Like you're getting into fundraising, like you're really hitting your stride as far as like go to market in a really cool space that is ready for disruption. Like, how do you guys think about it, in 10 years, what is success for you guys?
Oof. Yeah, I mean that's a good question. I'd say 10 years from now, success at like the macro level for us would just be that every single ticket in the sports and entertainment world is on a blockchain network. Primarily, we'd want Ticketry to essentially monopolize that space itself, which I think we're on a good path to go and do so. But as a fan, and again, Matt and I and everyone that's involved with this company so far, we're fans first, right? We grew up playing sports. We grew up being sports fans from, Titletown here in Boston, which is sweet. And the real problem is just that any ticket you buy on any existing platform, whether it's StubHub, Ticketmaster, SeatGeek, whoever, none of these tickets are real assets at all. They're not backed by like any verifiable layer to like their core. So our big goal is really just kind of putting the best of blockchain into like a consumer world where it doesn't feel like it's being forced upon people. It's just something that's kind of improving their fan experience. And then personally for, 10 years, what success looks like, I mean, I would love to have a box suite at like the Boston Celtics and be the official ticketing partner there. That's kind of what we go for internally here.
Yeah.
I like it's cool to have those goals. Like I always like having, okay, you have your realistic business goals, your revenue numbers, what you want to get to, how many employees you want to have. But then kind of having that fun goal of just like, I want to be able to like do this. Where it's like, if that happens, like whatever. Well, that's kind of like the the little shiny thing that is just fun to talk about.
Yeah. And even like I think there was a more conceptual goal of when we first started of like being able to go to any type of event like for free just because you're like a part of it would be really cool. Yeah. And we've had that a couple times, which has been awesome. Like we're like at like a legit baseball game, a brand new stadium, like a full stadium. And we're just like, oh, we're just here because we're like partnered with the organization.
Yeah.
So there's like, and being able to remind yourself when you're actually in the moment that like, hey, you're actually doing some of the things that you sought out to do.
For sure. Yeah. You're so like in the weeds with things and focused on the future that you do have to stop and be like, oh, it's pretty cool. Like if I was looking at this, if my old self was looking at this, be like, oh, that's like it's pretty cool that I'm doing this right now. So
100%. All right. On that note, thank you very much, sir. And
thanks, fellas.
Next time.
See you,
Appreciate it, man.